Welcome to the Art Club Safety Training Series. This month, we're going to cover PPE. As always, I'm John Kenny from Cottney Consulting Group, and I'm always happy to be here to continue the importance of safety training for you and your company. So this month, we're going to cover a PPE overview, changes in PPE since COVID, which are still in effect, commercial PPE, and residential PPE. So, what are the basic requirements? So minimum protective equipment, face and eye shield protection. They must meet ANSI standards Z87.1. I can't stress that enough. There's a lot of knockoffs out there that do not meet the standard. Glove type and limitations, full body protection from chemicals and heat, head protection per ANSI standard Z89.1. Again, head protection, your hard hats, that's key. And use of employee-owned PPE must be approved. So you're going, basically what that means at the end of the owner is you're responsible for that, which we're going to be covering. But if your employees do own their PPE, you must sign off on that and approve that they meet the standards and requirements. So you still have responsibility. So hard hats. Following information must be marked inside the hard hat. Manufacturer's name and identifying mark, date of manufacturer, the legend, right? It has to have this ANSI Z89.1-2014. That can be updated. It definitely updates as we go along, but that is a current standard. The type and class designation, the approximate head size range. So if optional performance features are applicable, like reverse stoning, LT for lower temperature, HV for high visibility, and HT for higher temperatures, they'll be listed. Service life, all hard hat components and accessories should be inspected daily for signs of dents, cracks, penetrations, UV ray damage, and any damage due to impact, rough treatment, or wear that might reduce the degree of protection originally provided. So it's real important that you have this in place where they're being inspected daily by your workers, and there's documentation that this program's in place. So commonly asked questions: can I paint or put decals on my hard hats? Labels are acceptable if they do not adversely affect the hard hat's protective rating or make it more difficult to find potential defects and damages. So again, you can have labels, you can have your like safety stickers and other things on there, but they have to be put in particular areas, and they can't interfere with the direction and meaning of what the hard hat was meant for. Can a cap, scarf, liner, or other items for purpose of cold weather protection be worn with this hard hat? So the answer to that is OSHA recommends that employees permit only liners that are specifically designed to be compatible with protective properties of the hard hat. So you have to get the liners that come along with the hard hat. You're not allowed to use any other type of coverings on your head, like a skull cap, something like that, and then put a hard hat on top. It has to be protection that comes with the hard hat or an add-on feature. Basic requirements: minimum protective equipment, protective footwear such as steel-toed shoes and guards as per ANSI standards Z41. Minimum clothing will be a shirt that covers the shoulder, long pants, good sturdy work shoes. Now you have to remember, you're doing hot work, you have to have full sleeves, there's different requirements, but these are the minimums. Retraining on the above will be required. Use of employee PPE must be approved. Again, it continues on with the same theme. If they're providing any of these items, you must approve them. So if you are required to have steel-toe shoes on the type of property you are, and a lot of companies do not supply them, the workers do buy their own, then you must make sure that they meet the standards. If you are reimbursing for them the same way, or if you're providing it, whatever your program requires. Hearing protection, protection from hearing loss. So we kind of forget about this a lot in our industry, but they are a requirement and they are a violation of OSHA if they come up and do not see these. So wearing of earplugs and earmuffs can help prevent damage in hearing. Again, exposure to high noise levels can cause irreversible hearing loss or impairment as well as physical stress. Earplugs made from foam, wax cotton, or fiberglass wool are self-forming and usually fit well. A professional Should fit your workers individually for molded. Performed earplugs can, clean your earplugs regularly and replace those that cannot be cleaned. So again, deal with your safety supply professional that you're dealing with to come up with the right solution for the type of noise that you have. Take in consideration, if you're working close to generators, they can require the use of earplugs and noise can be above. Definitely roof cutting equipment, other equipment that we use on the roof will require such compliance with these. So again, work with your safety supplier on these items, which is necessary. Sometimes you do have to have full ear protection over the top, but not always. So again, they will be able to guide you through your situation. Respiratory protection. When to wear respiratory protection. Workers must use appropriate respirators to protect against adverse health effects caused by breathing air, contaminant, harmful dust, fogs, fumes, mist, gases, smokes, sprays, or vapor. So that's the definition. Covers a wide area. Respirators cover the nose and mouth or the entire face and head to help prevent illness or injury. Required respirators must be NIOSH, NIOSH approved. That is the safety for respirators. And medical evaluation and training must be provided before use. So you not only, if you have to supply these due to your condition, the workers must be trained on how to properly wear, fit, and use these type of respirators. So there will be instances when you will need different types, which could just simply be a face mask or a face covering type mask or a full respirator. When we get into next month on the SDS sheets, they will also be a guideline to tell you which type of respirators are needed for your work. But you, again, when your situation calls for, you must work with your safety supplying professional on what is required for different types of situations. Fall protection. To prevent being injured from falls, an employer must guard every floor hole in which a worker can accidentally walk using a railing or toe board on a floor hole covering. So we're roofers. What does that matter? Well, if you're going up through the inside of a building and say a new construction job and it has a stairway access that you're using, or if your exterior, say you have a scaffolding setup going up scaffolding stairway and it allows entrance into these floorways, even though you would not be the responsible contractor per se for covering these holes, if your workers have access to it, then they must be covered. So that's something just to keep in mind. Provide a guardrail or toe board around every elevated opening sided platform, floor, or runway. Regardless of height, if a worker can fall into or onto dangerous machines or equipment, such as a vat of acid, conveyor belt, or other areas, employers must provide guardrails or toe boards for workers from falling and getting injured. Other means of fall protection required on certain jobs include safety harnesses and lines, safety nets, stair railings, and handrails. So, OSHA requires employees to provide working conditions that are free and known of dangers. Keep floors and work areas clean as far as possible in dry conditions. Same goes for your roofing. So again, the floors come into play if you have access into the building. So you cannot just walk through. We're talking about what falling in there. If you have sometimes we're going even to fix leaks in that, and we're going through a walkway path, a catwalk. If these things are not provided, then you will be in violation if you're using these areas to get up and gain access. Changes in PPE since COVID. So what do we talk about? Face masks. Cloth face coverings are not PPE. So when there's a lot of cloth masks out there, they especially became available during COVID. Yes, we're not in COVID area a pandemic as we were a couple of years ago, but the same thing is there's still not a substitution for if you're required to wear a surgical type mask for covering. So keep that in mind. You have to be, they're not going to allow a cloth type mask as an equivalent. Length of use. Face masks will need to be disposed if it becomes wet, soiled, or otherwise visibly contaminated during the work shift. Employers should provide readily available clean cloth face coverings or disposable face masks that meet the standards with workers to use coverings to become wet, soiled, or otherwise visibly contaminated. So again, you have to have replacements. They can't wear them days upon days. A lot of this was standard before we knew this, right? But since the onset of COVID, it become a lot more enforced in the field as we're seeing. So how do you fit them? Fit over the nose and mouth, fit snugly but comfortably against the side of the face. Secure with ties or ear loops. Include multiple layers of fabric. Again, we're talking about staying away from cloth, but these are the surgical types. Allow for breathing with restrictions. Can be laundered using the warmest appropriate water, and dry shift without damage or change the shape. A clean cloth face covering should be used. So when can you use that face covering? You know how you have the pitch hood mask or the other masks? Again, talk to your safety provider where you buy your PPE from, and they will be able to tell you which one of their products fits the situation that you're going to be facing on your particular projects. One does not fit all in every instance, so it's best to know which type works well for what you're doing and in compliance. PPE. Protective personal protective equipment should be provided and fitted to each employee with training prior to commencement of work. So you just can't throw the stuff out there and give it to them. They must be trained how to use the PPE that you're supplying. So who can be held responsible for PPE? That is the employer. The employer is responsible and is the one that's held accountable per OSHA for any PPE needs. Who pays for PPE? OSHA requires employers to pay for personal protective equipment when it is used to comply with OSHA standards on your projects. Typically, these items include hard hats, gloves, goggles, safety shoes, safety glasses, welding helmets and goggles, face shields, chemical protective equipment, and fall protection equipment. Exceptions are safety-toed protective footwear and prescription safety glasses were accepted from the employer payment requirement. So we talked a little bit about that on the shoes. Same way with prescription safety glasses. You are not required to pay for someone who wants to wear those prescription built safety glasses to meet it. Other than that, they will have to wear something over it. But that again is up to company policies, how they approach that. Residential versus commercial. So what we're going to talk about coming up is silica, low slope and steep slope fall protection. Kind of give you the difference between them. So silica dust. So what are the sources of silica dust? It's cutting cement tiles. Using handheld saws to cut cement tiles can create large amounts of silica dust. This dust can contain respirable silica, which can exceed occupational exposure limits. Processing of construction materials. We run into this if you're a commercial contractor or residential. Let's say you're cutting into a chimney, you're cutting into a joint, you're grinding, you're drilling into a concrete deck, you're sweeping across it. So it can include anything such as bricks, tiles, concrete, mortar that can release dust containing silica. So it is a wide standard. Now, enforceable on this, you need to read these over and really come up with a silica plan with your safety professional, or consult your attorney on that to get an exact plan in that works best for you to fit this standard. But you have to be aware you do have a requirement on this. So silica dust protection. So OSHA requires employers to provide PPE for silica dust protection, which includes respirators. The respirator should have a noise rating of N95 or higher, such as a P100, as it can capture 95% of the dust particles, including silica. So again, specific respirator is required to be used in this situation. Employers should also reduce worker exposure to respiratory silicon measures to expose the implemented proper safety controls and provide workers with dust control assets such as water sources. So you have to control the dust by wetting it down, like wet saws work very well when you're cutting tile, and you have to have the safety measures and controls in place. Again, read through the silica dust guidelines for roofing contractors, and you'll be able to put your program together. Steep slope fall protection. So what is the definition of steep slope? OSHA defines steep slope as a roof with a greater than 4:12 vertical to horizontal pitch. So if you refer to OSHA section 1926 501 B11, What it will tell you is each employee on a steep slope roof with unprotected sides and edges 6 foot or more above lower levels shall be protected from falling by guardrail systems with toe boards, safety net systems, or personal fall arrest systems. So again, you have options, but you have to comply by using one or a combination of these systems. Low slope fall protection. So as you would expect, OSHA defines a low slope as less than 4 on 12 vertical to horizontal. OSHA section 1926 501B10 is where you would go for that information. It requires that each employee engage in roofing activities on low slope roofs with unprotected edges against 6 foot or more above lower levels shall be protected from falling by either guardrail system, safety net systems, personal fall arrest systems, or a combination of warning line system and guardrail system, warning line systems and safety net systems, or warning line systems and personal fall arrest systems, or warning line systems and safety monitoring. On roofs 50 foot or less width, you refer to Appendix A and Subpart M, the use of safety monitoring system alone is permitted. So again, you have options. You need to know the conditions of your roof system that you're going to be working on, which one of these fall in, and you have the option of putting a rail around it where you wouldn't need a safety warning lines per se, or you can use a combination as laid out here to as we saw in this paragraph. So you have options, but you must comply using one or many. So some additional information for you to keep in mind. Typical PPE used in various roofing tools and equipment. Nail guns. Wear hearing protection and eye protection. Also use safety devices that prevent the nail gun from discharging unless it is in contact with the work surface. Avoid carrying a nail gun against the body and or finger or trigger or while connected to the air compressor. So common sense, but also some other things you need to do. So you can refer to the publication of nail guns on OSHA's website. So generator and air compressors, wear hearing protection and eye protection while working near equipment. Compressed air, wear hearing protection and eye protection. Also use a whip check or wire connections to prevent separation. Confirm that the pressure is adjusted appropriately for the tool. So there's more than just hooking up and using an air compressor to run your air guns. Single stripper. If it's manual, you got to wear the proper footwear and eye protection. Tin snips, you got to wear work gloves and safety glasses. Discard waste or scrap metal appropriately. We see this a lot. That doesn't mean you cut it and it just lays on the roof. You're supposed to be putting it in a pail or some other way to get it off of there so it doesn't become another hazard. Power saw. Wear hearing protection, eye protection, and work gloves. Ensure that the blades are sharp and the guards are in place and functioning correctly. Working near mobile equipment or traffic. So if you're on the ground and you're working near a lull, or you're working near traffic, or you're blocking pedestrian workwear, you're keeping out a lookout, you have to wear a high visibility clothing, like your vest with the reflectiveness on it. Unprotected work at height 6 foot or greater. Use a fall arrest or fall restraint equipment. Hazardous substance present. Wear an appropriate respirator if permissible dust, mist, or fumes levels are exceeded. So again, you need to know what kind of dust levels you're going to have on your project by either prior testing or industry guidelines or standards, or like I said, when we go into the SDSs, they'll give you guidelines on it next month. So additional information. So additional PPE may be required. Full face shields when cutting, grinding, or chipping, or if you're running a kettle or other hot equipment. Chemical splash goggles. So if you're using certain chemicals, the goggles must be used that can resist whatever chemical you're using. Specific protective clothing such as welding leathers and other welding or FR clothing when working with live electric. So again, realizing a lot of this will not pertain to you, but keep in mind that when you're using using certain things like cutting or using sometimes roofers I've seen use torches to cut deck in other areas when they're cutting supports off of units. Keep in mind, whatever your situation is, you have to have the right PPE there. So other items to consider within your company, as always, is a safety director or somebody in charge of safety in your company to keep up with all this information and what you're doing. Keep track of signing out PPE for sure and have the training in place. And again, track and train. Can't stress that enough. You continue to track and train within your company, you will hit your safety standards and your safety goals. So that's all for today, and we'll catch you next month. Thank you.